Okay. So as we are looking here at doing some sketching, and in particular looking at sketching in our learning plan number 2, a question that came up was, where do I change my units? You know, for instance, from inches to millimeters or millimeters to inches. And the place that we do that is once we have Creo all set and we've selected our working directory. So assuming that you've done that already, if you want to just verify, you can click your working directory over here and just look at the path on the top to be sure that it's ending in the directory that you want it. And mine indeed is. Okay, so then I can just simply X out of here, and then I'm going to start a new file. Okay, I'm going to start new, and this can be a part, this can be a sketch, whatever it might be, and we're going to be sketching. So I'm going to hit sketch. I'm not going to worry about the file name just right now, but you can change that as needed. I'm going to hit OK, and once I'm in here and I go back up to File. Now, oh, you dirty dog, prepare is not available.
That's what's happening to me.
Oh, I know why. Oh, shoots. Manage file. It's because we are in Sketch. Sure, Zach, you have to pick the one. Oh, there's two that are metric. All the others I think are English. Just
in
about
the future, I won't have questions about metric.
Oh, shooty shoots. You know what? I'm going to close this for a second where we can actually control it. And you know what? And I'm actually off the top of my head here. I don't think I'm worrying about it anymore. I'm going to explain this in a little bit. So file, if I want to start new and I go to the part, okay, I'm going to do a part. Now I can change prepare becomes available, and prepare is where I'm going to do model properties. Okay, and this is where I'm going to be setting up my units. And so I've got materials, I've got tools, and we should be able to go to the drafting standards and tolerance standards. Hold on, I just want to be sure. Oh, here my units are right at the top. I didn't catch them there. So under materials, units, we can change, and then you can change them over here. And this is at the model level, okay? I'm sorry, at the part level. Now, because our sketch is just numbers, okay? We can draw it to the metric numbers without specifying at this point on the sketch level, is it English or is it metric? It's just that you're going to now be drawing something, 10 millimeters. Whether it's 10 inches or 10 millimeters, it's just 10 units long in a sketch. And then when you pull that into, for instance, if you start at the sketch level and then you want to use that for a model, then what you do is you identify what are my units at that point. Okay, so you don't need to worry about it actually in the sketch level, I guess is how they're looking at it. They're keeping the sketch generic at a unit level as opposed to worrying if it's inches or if it's metric. In your model, that's when it's going to become more important if you're in metric or in English. Okay, so just draw it the way you draw it when you're in Sketcher. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna close this. By closing out of an option here, it holds my working directory. I don't have to reassign my working directory. So if you're like working on, in a session of Creo and you set up your working directory and you've got your options all set for you and you like it, rather than when you're done with a model or with a sketch, for instance, and you've filed it away and you're all set, instead of like going back out, completely of Creo and then re-going into the session, you can just go up to File and you can hit Close. And then that way, all of your settings in the background and your options, whether it's units or, how you have things set up, like we were, the number of units, the decimal places, that will still remain the same from when you set it for that session. And then you can just now start a new file again. So hitting Close kind of gets rid of that stuff that was there. Okay, so I think we figured it out, all right? So you don't have to worry about units. Don't worry about it in the Sketcher mode. When we are in our part level, then we will identify metric or English. So I'm going to start out here by going New, and I'm going to go to my Sketcher. And the the one that I wanted to go over is kind of kick us off, is to go over the very first one, which is 3.1 on page 69, okay? On page 69. And that one is called, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use their file name. It's called shear_plates, and I'm going to call it 1. I don't think I have that one out there yet. So I'm going to say, okay. Now, in Creo, you cannot use spaces. You have to do underscore, okay? And also, and I just want to call your attention to, in our first chapter, there was kind of a list of, you know, rules that you need to keep in mind when giving it file names. So you have to abide by that. It's a little different than just the normal Windows atmosphere. Okay, so now if I scooch this over, you'll notice at the top that I am in Sketcher mode. And then in the background here, you'll notice that my file name is shear_plate1, and it says that it's active, okay? Now, I can start sketching. So as I look underneath here, I'm gonna go under my camera, and this is gonna be where I'm going to, you know, focus my efforts to make this sketch. Now, I have some notes in here, okay? And as you read the top here, it gives us some hints into kind of like what's going on. Where I'm going to start is I'm going to start at point A, and I'm going to work my way around the perimeter of this plate, okay? And I'm just going to draw the perimeter first, and then I'm going to add the holes and then the slot, okay? Now, before I do so, you'll notice that the decimal places on here are 3 places. So if your configuration file is set to 2 decimal places, which may have been, you know, kind of what the default was when we did it, we're going to want to go in and we're going to want to change that to 3 decimal places. So we're going to do that through Options and then Sketcher and then 3 decimal places. So I'm going to go in under File, I'm going to go under Options, and then I'm going to go underneath, I think it's Sketcher, yeah. And right here, how many decimal places? Now, I've set up my config file now to be 3 decimal places, but if yours isn't, here's a place to do it, and then you can hit OK. And then if you did change it, it'll ask you if you want to re-go over or rewrite that configuration file so the next time it is. A lot of them are 3s. You can do 4 or 5 if you wanted to. Sometimes I don't mind 4 and 5 just because sometimes when we're doing, you know, decimal equivalents of fractional dimensions in English, they do go out to the 4th and 5th decimal place. So it's okay to do that as well. But we'll do 3 and kind of go along with what they want us to do. So I'm going to start here down at point A, okay? Now, you can go around and what you're going to want to do is this very last dimension here on the end. So we're going to go all the way around here. We're going to come back and we're going to stop here and we're going to leave this open, okay? And I'm going to leave it open because then as I identify the rest of it, it kind of gives it the freedom to move around. If I close it and my distances and my sizes are kind of way off, Creo will get kind of wonky, okay? And then it does things that we're not real, you know, really expecting. Now, sizing wise, right now, the thing about being in Sketcher, you don't really know how large or small your dimensions are. So what I suggest doing is laying down your first line and identifying its length, and its length is 3.688. And then once you have that first line in and it's dimensioned to its value, then you can go around and proportionally kind of put things in place. If you come in and you're really large compared to what you want to be, then when it just does the dimension for that one little dimension, it'll make that one really small and the rest of it will remain really large. And then it's like weird. Or the opposite. Maybe your dimension needs to be much larger and you're here. So I always go in to Creo and I kind of do that first item. In SolidWorks, comparing it back to SolidWorks, I just want you to be aware that they're a little bit nicer because you can draw that profile and that first dimension that you put on, that's why it's kind of strategic, like pick the longest one or one of the main dimensions, because then it'll kind of scale everything to that first dimension. And then you're in perspective. So SolidWorks does it a little bit differently. So here's one of those nuances that Creo just does it its own way. All right. So I'm going to put my first line in first. So I'm here in the Sketcher ribbon. I just want to add line, and I'm going to make that horizontal line about this long. And then I'm going to hit my middle mouse button, 2 times to kind of end it. Whoopsie, come on. And then I drew it to 4.354. Not awful compared to, but I'm going to now go to dimension. Oopsie, not dimension. I'm just going to double click on that dimension. It's going to activate it for me, and I'm going to put in 3.688, enter. Okay, and now it's the right dimension for me, and I'm just going to move that down, and I'm just selecting it with my left mouse button, dragging it down below, and then I'm ready to continue. I can hit escape to kind of end that command, go back into the line command, and now I'm going to just create my perimeter, all right, kind of off of this, because now I have a little bit more perspective, a little flatter. Now, Creo tries to do you all these favors, okay? Meaning it's trying to recognize at times, do you want to be perpendicular? Do you want to be the same length? And so when you see these activate, and I would suggest at first, don't, go somewhere else, like go off of it. So right now it would snap to being perpendicular to that line down there. That has no relationship to me at all. It'll hold that constraint, and then it'll, again, you won't have the freedom to add the dimensions you need to. So I'm going to make this intentionally larger like this. Then I'm going to come down. And again, I don't want to be perpendicular there because I want to be able to enter my angle in. Here, down like this-ish. And then this one I do want to be perpendicular to. So when I go here and it says perpendicular, notice that that is a 90-degree angle. So I'm like, okay, cool. Then we'll do it right away. But if it's not, just be careful when it's highlighting these greens and putting these little lines in, and it's not something that you want. So I want this to be 60 degrees. I think that's the last point then. And then I can hit escape. And now it's going to add all of the dimensions it thinks we want. Now remember, these are called weak dimensions, right? And they're in the blue. And I'm going to try to get all of my dimensions switched over to black, right? Because then they're going to be the strong ones that I have control over. Okay, just noticed. If those who are on virtually, I'm really going to try to glance every so often at my chat box. So if a question does come up, make sure you put it there. And again, I'm going to try to get our speakers kind of figured out here in the short term. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in down here, and I'm going to start just going from, now I'm on point B, I'm going to go up to point C. So I need to just bring it up so it's a little bit closer to me. And I'll notice that this angle right here is supposed to be 135, and the length of this is going to be 1.563. So whichever one you want to add first or second doesn't matter, but I'm going to go into dimension, and I'm going to simply left click this line. And then I'm going to middle click out here. Okay. Now, sometimes it may not go where you want it to. So we'll kind of play around with little options that you might need to exercise to get it to where you want. Because sometimes, even if it's at the angle, it might go to the endpoints and go vertical and horizontal. So there's little tricks that you can kind of play with this a little bit. So here, this is going to be the length is 1.563, and I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to go over here, I'm going to double click, and this is going to be 135. Enter. Whoa, see, it did the wonky thing, you see? So if I go like this, look at that. What the heck? So my next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to work on that point C to D, or line C to D. So now I want this angle right here to be 150. So don't get too discouraged by it or think, oh crap, I did something wrong. Because now look, all of a sudden it's right back like where it was by putting in the 150. So just kind of like say, okay, Creo, do what you want. I'll get you back in just a minute here. Okay, so now I'm still in the dimension command. I click this, left click it, and then I'm going to come out here, perpendicular-ish to it or kind of by it. And that is going to be 1.375, and then enter. There we go. Then, oh, see, it went all over. I was trying really hard to not have this happen. So what I'm going to do is I have to get out of the dimension command, sorry, escape out of dimension. I'm going to move up. I really don't know why this is being so difficult. I actually took the steps to up here. sorry, I'm left clicking on a point, oopsie. I'm left clicking on the point, not this thing, this concentric. I want the actual point itself, the very end point here. And I'm gonna move that. Okay, and I'm middle mouse buttoning. I'm gonna zoom out like this. I'm gonna get my point here so that I can see it on the screen when I do it there. Oh, okay, there we go. So it's kind of the form. So now let's get back over here. And the next angle that I want to do is this one. And that's going to be 120. Like that. And then I want the length of this line. Here along the line there is 2.219 and enter. Oops. Doesn't want me to change it. Now, remember, I'm going to actually scooch this down. Let me, where's that? If you can't change something, that's okay. Because remember, sometimes we have to do a couple things along the way and then it'll be happier with us. We kind of ran into that the last time. And this one is 3.438, enter. And then this angle is 105. So sometimes we just kind of need to, I want that dimension. Now, what it's doing right here, it's saying, hey, there's some dimensions here that aren't jiving with the setup that we have here. And I know which one it is. It added this 6.664 along the way. That's not a dimension we need. So you'll notice that as we look at these dimensions, okay, we want to be able to control this length. So we're going to leave this one. We want to control that angle. We're leaving that one. We want to control that, so we're leaving that. We're controlling the 120, but it's this one right here that's across the body here. That's the problem, okay? So we're going to, and Creo sometimes thinks it's smarter or it's doing us a favor. So I'm just going to delete this, okay? Now I'm okay again. So now I'm going to go 105 right here. And then I'm going to go back. Remember when I couldn't change this one right here? I'm going to go back to 2.219 and it should do it for me now. There we go. And now same thing here, 3.438, enter. And now it's not doing it again. You silly. Okay, that's all right, because again, it'll probably come up. I can see some other dimensions in here that it's trying to hold for me that are just not what I'm going to be wanting. All right, so I am along here. The next angle that I'm going to put in is going to be between these two lines right here. So I'm in dimension mode. I'm going to click, left click, right click, and this is going to be another 105. Okay, so that's there. And again, gosh, I did all the right things and it is just wanting to do its own. But that's okay. You know, it's kind of a nice lesson in, don't worry, Creo will just, you can work with it. 2.391. Okay, so now that's out there. I'm going to grab this endpoint. I got to get out of the dimension. I can grab this endpoint. I'm going to bring this one back over here. Here. Sorry. See if I can make this work. I think I can. And this is going to be 150. I'm actually going to delete. I'm not that I'm struggling with it, but I feel like this is just got a mind of its own. I'm going to just select and delete those last two segments and I'll add them back in. So here's my 150. The length along this line is going to be the 1.906. And then now I will add my line to the endpoint here.
Is it Nick?
Gosh. Okay. And then add the dimension here. So again, it's left click, and then you're going to middle mouse button click where you want to place it. And then we're going to do left click, middle mouse button, 2.077. And then the angle here is going to be 60 degrees. There we go. So let me just double check all the way around here. I've got 3.688, 1.563, 150, 150, 1.375, 120, 219, 105. Oh, this one needs to be changed. I thought it looked big at the end. So going back there, now it's allowing me to 3.438 and then enter. There we go. 2.3, 150 again, perpendicular, 60, and there we go. Okay, so now what we want to do, you'll notice a couple things. First and foremost, all of my dimensions around the outside now and any of my angles are all black. There are no blue ones left. So if you need to, go around, do it. If you have to delete some of the profile, it's totally fine, and then redraw them back in like I ended up having to with these last two segments. Just made it easier than trying to kind of struggle with what Creo thought you wanted. And then what you're going to notice is we have this opening at the bottom. This is where we need to finish up and close it. Okay. And then double click. And then now when we see this shading on the inside, it's recognizing that it's a closed loop and that you have everything identified. Okay. So it's a nice little check. So it's a shaded closed loop. Now to get that, if you're not getting it, up here on the sketch ribbon, you'll notice this bottom, it says shade closed loops. You're going to get this pink shading then at that point. Okay, so now we have this in its form. It's not a bad idea to file, and then whatever you named it, it's going to save it in your working directory. So I named it when we came in shear_plate1. So I'm just going to simply hit save. That first save, what it does is it just verifies you want it in this directory. So you should check on the top. Is it the working directory that you assigned? Mine is. And then down here, the file name. So you can just say, okay. Now, if you wanted to change it at that point, you could, but it's just the save. Now, every time you hit the save command, it'll be fine. It's just that first time it wants you to verify, which is a good check. Okay, so now I have my plate. I have the perimeter all done. I want to add the two holes, okay? Now, if we look underneath, it does give us a note. It does give us a note about how this hole, its location is directly above point A. So they're in line with one another. So you're going to want to set that up right away. So I am going to go in. We are going to go to circle. I'm going to go down, and I am going to position myself kind of close to. Now, sometimes, depending on the operation, it may just find that, oh, you want it above that line, and then there'll be that little like shaded gray dashed line. It's not recognizing it right now, even though I'm hovering. That's okay. I'm just going to go sort of by it, and then here's my circle in my second click, and I'm just going to click it, and then I'm going to hit my middle mouse button, and now it, put it in here. So you'll notice that the dimensions for it are all light blue, so they're going to be those weak dimensions. I'm going to double click on the diameter, and that diameter is going to be 0.625. And then I need to locate it, okay? So it does say that it wants it to be in line with point A. So I'm going to go up. That would be a vertical alignment. So I'm going to hit vertical up here. And then I'm going to click on the center point and on the end point. And now notice it added these two constraints here to each one of those features saying they're in line. So if point A moves to the right, so is my hole. If point A moves to the left, so is my hole. If my hole moves in one direction or another, point A is going along with it. They are constrained now to one another. okay, intentionally. So it was the vertical constraint and then clicked on either one of these so that the centers are in alignment. Now, distance from the bottom up, that dimension is given to us at 0.938. So I'm going to simply click on this. Oopsie, I have to get out of that command. 0.938, enter. Okay, so now this is in place and I'm going to pull this over here so it's kind of off the drawing. All right, I kind of reposition myself. All right, so now I've got this first hole. The next hole that's over here is in alignment with it. So I'm going to hit another circle. I'm going to kind of go over here and I'm going to go straight over. And notice it automatically recognizes, you want that in line? Okay, then they're going to be together. So I'm going to click then over to the right here. And then I'm going to start making my hole. Oh, shoots, I clicked on accident. Let me undo that. Try it one more time. Circle, kind of, I'm not grabbing the center. I'm not clicking. I'm just kind of hovering over. So as I go to the right, it stays in line. I'm going to click for my center. And now notice that when I go out before I click, I get to this equal sign. If you have holes that are in a pattern and they're going to be the same size, this equal sign then automatically sets it so that these are going to stay together and they're going to be related size-wise. So when it says this equal sign and it highlights the other hole as green, I'm going to click because now it made it that same size, and then I can hit escape because there's another. Now, if I had more holes to do that with, I could continue. All right, now I want to set the distance between these two holes, and that's 2.875. So I'm going to hit the dimension key. I tried to assume where it wanted it to go, but don't worry about that dimension. Click, click, and then here, and that was middle mouse button, 2.875. There we go. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to hit escape to get out of the dimension command. I'm going to pull this one down here. That looks good. I'm going to move this one over just so that they're not like all crazy over the top of each other. Okay. Now's another good time to do a quick save. And now it's not going to ask me about that menu. It's going to just remember, yep, it was good last time. It should be good this time. All right. So here are my two holes. Now, as we look underneath here, we need to locate this part of the slot, from that last hole that we just created. So what we're going to do is I am going to put what we call a center line through that hole. Now, I think it tells you up here, but more importantly, it's going to be parallel to this line right here. This line, this center line that I'm going to put in, and this one are parallel to one another. Okay. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to drop it in. So here's the center line. Now, center line is specific because it's kind of like what we call a datum, where you can like grab to or you can mirror about. You can't just put a line in and mirror about a line. It has to be a center line. So they're kind of important. And you can also like attach, for instance, center lines and such of other features. So I'm going to put a center line in here, and I'm going to start at the center of this hole. And then notice that my second point is going to set the orientation. So when I get into an orientation where we see this parallelism kind of come up, I'm going to click at this point, okay? And then hit escape. Now, if you didn't click in, all you have to do is you want to go to parallel and you want to click the two features and it'll make those two parallel. So if you don't get it on the actual putting it in place, that's okay. You can do it on the backside. So now I've got this center line here. Okay, I've got the center line and its orientation is parallel too. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to draw a circle and I'm going to attach it to that center line somewhere right around here. I'm going to click, and now I'm going to create a radius here, but this radius is not the same, or the diameter is not the same as the two holes that I created. So I want to intentionally make it either a little smaller or larger so it doesn't connect to or make equal to the other two holes. Okay, I've got it in place. I'm going to hit escape. So now I'm going to double click on that size. This is a diameter right now of 0.3822. Now, you could double 0.4 because it's a 0.4 radius in our book, and I could put a diameter of 0.8. But I don't want to. I want to dimension it so it matches what I have there. And also later on, when I would, for instance, have the final step of creating a detail drawing, it's going to remember that I had that in there as a radius, and it'll dimension to a radius rather than a diameter. So I'm going to go over the top of this, and I'm going to left click it. And when I left click it, you're going to get this dialog box that comes up. If you double click it, it's going to go right into text editing mode. But if you single click it, this menu comes up, this little menu comes up, and now I can go from a diameter to a radius. And now I can put the radius in at 0.4. And now it's a radius dimension, okay? If something comes in as a radius and you want it to be the diameter, you do the very same thing. You go over the top of it until it's like orange color, highlight it. I left click it, that box comes up, and now it would toggle back to the opposite. You want it to be a diameter instead. So I'm gonna hit escape because I want it at radius. Okay, so this is here. Now, let's look back underneath. Okay, so now you'll notice that we are not on that same line. We are like down here. So I'm going to draw another center line, okay, through that top circle. So I'm going to kind of come down here. I'm going to hit center line. I'm going to click here, and I don't want it to be vertical, and I don't want it to be perpendicular or parallel to anything else. So when I kind of get in the middle here, where I'm not like snapping to something, I'm going to click, all right? And then I'm going to hit escape. Now this gives me the freedom to dimension this at a 30-degree angle from this one. So this angle right here needs to be 30 degrees, or that one, which is the same. So I'm going to dimension, and I'm going to go from here to here, and then my middle mouse button right here is going to be 30 degrees. There you go. Okay. So now this is in place. I do need to, this whole location is still weak, and that length is going to be along this line. So let me add that dimension as long as I've got them captured and I'm in the dimension mode. All right. And this is going to be, so it's left click, 3.156. Yeah. Okay. So now that is placed. Okay. Probably a good time to do a quick save. Doesn't hurt to do that. And then now I want to position my other hole down here. So I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to go circle, go along here. Okay. And whoops, did I hit? Oh, I must have double clicked quickly. So I'm going to do an undo on that. That is not what I wanted. I'm going to go circle here, and I don't want to be, I'm going to zoom out here. I don't want to be equal to that one, the smaller one. I want to be equal to the larger one. So I'm going to be right there. Okay. So just kind of wait. You can always key them in separately if you wanted to. I just find that why not? If we know they're going to be equal, then let's make them equal. Okay. Now the length, the distance on here, dimension, I'm going to go from here to here, and I'm going to go out here. Oh, I didn't want to do it that time. Delete. Let me try it again. Here, I'm going to go from here, here. Sometimes what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for my lines. I'm going to actually connect the lines first. So I'm going to go line here and line down here. Okay. Now, you'll notice that I just randomly put my endpoints in here, and we know that they need to be tangent and coincident. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit escape here, and I'm going to hit the tangent function, okay? And, oh, actually the top one, it looks like it's in here, okay? But the bottom one I know is not. So I'm going to go back down here, and I'm going to say, okay, I want this line and this circle to be tangent, okay? And then you'll notice that it added the coincident as well. If the coincident doesn't go in there, make sure that you put it in there. Otherwise, it'll like overlap or make it further, or it's short, okay? So that's one. I'm going to put the line back in here too. So I'm just going to go kind of close-ish here and close there. And I'm going to go to, you'll notice that the constraints in here are tangent on the right and coincident there. So that one's good. But down here, all I've got is coincident. I need that to be added in as tangent as well. So tangent, and I want this line and this circle. There we go. Making sure that they're both tangent and coincident. Okay. Now, I need to get rid of that inner part of each one of the circles. So I'm going to go to segment or delete segment, and I'm simply going to left click and start dragging the parts that I want to get rid of. Okay, so anything that crosses that line. I can also delete singly. So if I'm still in delete segment, I can just left click on a section and it'll do it. Okay, until the next intersection. Okay, so that's here now. And then lastly, I'm going to add this dimension in, and I'm going to add it along this line. It just seems to go in better. So I'm going to click here, click out here. There we go. Now it's parallel. And that needs to be 0.938. Enter. There we go. Okay. So now if I hit escape, I'm out of my commands. You'll notice as I look around here. Now, sometimes I'm not sure why. I think this is just a visual thing. If I reposition, sometimes the dimensions have these green arrowheads on the ends, and it's not even all of them, it's just some of them. Don't worry about that. As long as the number and most of it is black, you're good to go, and those are all strong dimensions. So I don't see any blue dimensions on here, which means that I am fully defined. Now, additionally, the question that the actual book asks are, you need to add some reference dimensions after you have this all in place. Let me go back to the book here. Okay, so you'll notice that, and I'm going to highlight with yellow. Okay. They want to know, what is this angle? What is this length on the end? Okay, so for this very last segment from K to A. And then additionally, they want to know what this dimension is right here. So you need to add in those 3 reference dimensions. And by doing that, then I'll know that you did it correctly. So if you get the right numbers. So let's see here. You'll notice that you're not going to put a regular dimension in, because then it's going to be like you're over defining at this point, because right now it's perfect. But if you add more dimensions, it's going to say, whoa, which ones do you want here? All right. So instead, we want to actually reference dimension. Okay. So we're going to hit reference dimension, and I'm going to go in here. I'm going to hit OK here to here. All right. And it puts the reference right in back of it. Same thing for the angle. I'm still in reference dimension mode. So I can do this angle to here. There you go. And then lastly, I want to do from here to here. And I want that vertical dimension, and it's going to be a reference as well. So make sure that you add those 3 reference dimensions if you choose to do this one, okay? And you got kind of a start to finish here with my demonstration. Are there any questions? Okay? If there's not, then I just want to go through preparing any one of your sketches to be turned in, all right? So what I would probably do here, because if I kind of center things right now, there's kind of dimensions over the top of one another. Now, this is a sketch, okay? Oopsie, I gotta get out of reference dimension mode. This is a sketch. So truly, this is not gonna be used to make a drawing. But since this is an assignment that you're handing in, what I would appreciate you doing, and even though I know we are dimensioning on the part, and that is, you know, illegal, if you would. I do want you to move things around so you can kind of see how I'm moving things around, so that, because if it was an actual drawing, we'd make some additional views and stuff like that, and we would make it easier to read. But this truly is just a sketch, and we want to kind of pull the dimensions in so that we can be kind of efficient with things, okay? And that they're not like way far out, but also it doesn't have to abide by the standards that we know, okay? Because again, it's a sketch. We're practicing sketching. So if you would, just kind of move things around so that they're, you know, easily identifiable, and that they're closer to the part, so that when I do kind of, you know, get everything on the screen, it's not like super small or super big. Okay, so now that I can kind of, I feel like I can see all of my dimensions pretty well, I'm now gonna take a screenshot. Now for sketches, we don't need to worry about the tree over on the left-hand side, because it's only a sketch. There's not like extrudes, and it doesn't kind of show us our process. So for just the sketcher ones, you can just get a screen snip of the sketch itself. So I am going to do my Windows Shift S, and I'm going to kind of start with my upper left-hand corner. I'm going to hold and drag, and then I'm going to release. And then now this is on my clipboard, right? So if I go and I open up a document of some sort, it can be Google Docs, it can be Word, that's what I tend to go to. And I'm simply going to open up a blank document, not now, and I'm gonna maybe put in here LP2 homework, and I'm gonna put Kelly Riva. You want to put your name. You really don't need to. I'm going to be honest because you're going to be handing it in the Dropbox and I know who you are. So if you don't put your name, it's totally fine. And then I'm just going to do, for instance, this is problem 3.1. I'm going to identify which problem it is. So make sure you do this though, okay? And then immediately below it, I'm going to do, I'm going to paste this in place. So I can do a right click here and I can do a paste and there it is. Okay, now it's in the document. Now remember that I don't want you to leave this as a Word document. Additionally, just as a frame of reference, I have my first problem in here. On one document, you can continue to add additional problems. So if you wanted to do problem 3.2, then you would put the screen snip below here. Now it may go to the next page if it's bigger or smaller. If you want to adjust the size here, just click on it and you can make it bigger or smaller, just not too small that I can't read it. Because remember, I'm going to have to pull this up and I don't want to be zooming in. Okay. So if you can keep them as big as possible, but if you wanted to get 2 sketches on one page, I think that's reasonable. Then you're going to want to probably make this a little bit larger down here and then add in the next sketch. Once you're done with that, then you're going to convert it to a PDF, and that's just going to be file, and you can do it as an export, okay? And then you're going to create a PDF and then hit this create a PDF and follow the instructions. And we've done that before, but if you need a little practice or you need some help with it or reminders, just let me know. The PDF is what you're going to upload then, but not until you have all of the sketches, you know, the 5 that you choose done. Okay. So that's kind of the first one that I wanted to go over. Any questions on 3.1? Any questions on 3.1 at all? Okay. I'm going to look at the chat box here. It doesn't look like it. Okay. So I hope most of you do that one because there are like things in that one, even though it looks kind of simple. You know, getting around the perimeter takes a little bit. And then, like I said, don't be afraid to, if you have to delete some segments that you created because Creo just is not cooperating, that's okay. And then you can kind of continue on. All right. Let me see here. A couple of other, actually, I'm going to ask, are there any questions that you have on any particular one that might be giving you difficulties?
Work frame.
So which one is that? What number?
3.77 looks like.
No, it would be 3.1 through 12. 3.8?
Yeah, figure 3.7.
Oh, 3.8. Okay. All right. So let me go back over here. So the one that Zach is referring to is this one right here, right? Okay. Yeah. Now, first and foremost, don't worry about the volume. All right. So we've already kind of said that earlier, but don't worry about the volume underneath in this space here. Okay. We're just going to sketch the profile. That's what we're going to do. Okay. Cool. So now to approach this, what I'm going to start by doing is kind of setting myself up and then drawing the outside perimeter here. And then we're going to use what we call the offset command. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Because it's the same offset all the way through. So it's a nice practice of that. So I'm going to go back into Creo here. And then I'm going to go up. Now, I don't want to X out of Creo and completely go out and come back in. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go File, and I'm simply going to say Close. Okay. And then the other part of that, I am going to manage my file here because what Creo does, and we got this, and I don't know that I discussed it in detail, but it was one of the questions that you had for your homework, is Creo leaves behind previous versions of a file. And if you've saved it and it's like, this is the final one, if you go out into your directory, you're going to see like a trail. It's going to be like however many times you saved, there's that many files out there. And we want to get rid of those old ones, especially if we're onto a new part. So we're going to say delete old versions, okay? And then that's it, okay? Now that cleans up, so now you're only left with like the good file, the final file that you created. All right, so a couple of things I'm just going to check here. I'm going to just make sure that my working directory stayed, and it did. It should, it did. And then you'll notice on this problem, these are all two-place decimals. So I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to go down to Options, Options, and then I'm going to go to Sketcher, and I'm going to change this to 2 decimal places, okay? Now, I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to ask me, do I want to change my configuration file? That's really up to you. If you like having the standard as 3, that's fine. But for this example, I'm just going to do 2. So I'm going to say no. You don't need to change the configuration file. Leave it at 3. For this, just this one part, I'm going to have 2 places. Okay? So now if I go back into options, it should show 2. But my configuration file was not changed. Back to Sketcher. Yep, it's 2 right now. So anything that I go forward with is going to be 2 places in this session. Okay, so I'm going to start in the bottom left-hand corner and kind of go around the outside. And I'm going to do what I had done before. The other thing that you'll notice is, so I'll pull this up over here. You'll notice that they have a center line down here. I'm going to put that in place first because that's what everything is going to be anchored to. And I'm going to start in this corner, this lower left-hand corner, and work my way around. So I'm going to start new, sketch, and this is called the support frame, support_frame. And okay. All right. So I'm going to start with my center line, horizontal, just 2 places, and then escape, and it's there. Now you'll notice I'm going to start my line command. I'm going to start over on the left-hand side here, and I'm just going to go up 1 level, okay? And I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to hopefully get my dimension in here. Whoopsie. Dimension is here, 2.53, and I need it to be 1.75. Okay. Then my next one, line, and I'm going to go up, and it's going to go over, and it's going to be horizontal. And it's going to come down, but I don't want it to be even here because it's not the same size. I'm going to kind of keep it so that it doesn't constrain it. There we go. And then down. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to march around. I know that this is 1.75 straight up. This angle on the inside is going to be 135. And then I'm going to do a dimension for this and right click. And this is going to be 2.75. Okay. Then this angle right here, oh, I'm going to do it on the other side. I'm just going to keep going. Double click here. This is going to be 4.5. And that angle, nope, it's going to be at the bottom here. It's going to be this one is 125. I'm going to go here to here, 125. And then this height is going to be, oh, it's just a reference. Okay. Actually, I need to do this one. Let's go here. And this is going to be 4.05, enter. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to leave this last one here. So as we go around here, you'll notice that we have all black dimensions and they are all strong dimensions, not weak dimensions. And I have it, corresponding over here. Now, the offset. You'll notice that on our drawing there, each one of these segments is an offset of 0.75. So we do have an offset command here, all right, up in sketching. It's to the right of fillet, to the left of this center line. So I'm going to click on it, and there's going to be this little window that appears over on the right, and you have a couple options here. You can do a single offset. So if I click on one item, it's going to offset whatever distance that I give it, okay? I could do chain, and this is where I select the first and the last one, and anything in between then like forms a chain. And then a loop is going to be a closed chain, okay? So I'm going to go chain, and I'm going to start with this one and then this one, okay? And you don't get much from this, okay? You don't get much from this. What you do get, because I would like to see it actually highlight the path, but it doesn't, okay? It just doesn't. But there is this arrow. So notice that to the inside is where I'm gonna do my offset. Now, if that's not the side, don't worry about it. If it's pointing opposite way, like if you picked the first one and the second one and it goes in the opposite way, then all you gotta do is your offset, just give it a negative value and it's gonna go on the opposite side. So it's not a big deal. So offset, it's on the right side as I look at my arrow, and it's gonna be 0.75. And then I'm gonna hit the green check mark, okay? So now what it did was it offset each one of those lines 0.75, okay? So I'm gonna hit escape to get out of there, and I'm going to close the loop on the bottom here, escape again, and then I'm gonna hit line one more time and close it at the bottom here. Okay, escape. And now I've got to close the loop. Notice that I have the shading in there now, okay? And now I need to go around and dimension the way that we're going to do it here. So first and foremost, I'm going to get the thicknesses here. So I am going to dimension, and I'm going to do this thickness, and I'm going to go down here, 0.75. And you can enter it in or just hit enter, okay? Because it was in there from me doing the command. Oopsie. Got to get out of there. I want to move it to the very middle here. There we go. Okay. Now, don't worry about the ones that are still there, because we're going to continue to kind of go around here. So I'm going to do another dimension. I'm going to go from here to here, and then I'm going to middle mouse button right there. And that's going to be 0.75. Just hit enter. Same thing at the top. I need to do it in each thickness place. Enter. Here. Enter. And notice that some of those other dimensions like have gone away now. And then lastly, I'm going to go here and then down and then enter. Okay, so now I have no more weak dimensions left, and I'm just kind of looking here. And the only other thing that I need to do is I need to add in a reference dimension for the height. So I'm going to go reference dimension for the height of my last one, enter, and there it is. Okay, was that helpful? Was that what you needed, Zach? Okay.
I sketched the entire perimeter and then just went to McDonald's after that.
Okay. Did I get fries? Did I get fries or a Big Mac? I went to McDonald's. That's good. I like it. Okay. So then the next thing, once you've got this all in place, the next thing is just double check that I can see all the dimensions. Remember, you are handing this in so that I can see it. I am not pulling up the files. It's just easy. I'm just going to tell you, if you would send me the file, I have to open up Creo and in and out. These are sketches. I can tell a lot from just the screenshots. So, I want this. But then that means that when you're placing your dimensions, it doesn't have to be at the perfect ANSI standard spot, okay? But I need to be able to see it. I need to be able to see it, and if they're over the top of each other and all kind of crazy, then I can't, and then I can't give you points and blah, 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 blah. Okay? So just kind of double check this, make sure that it's something that I can, reasonably see everything, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so then I would do when I'm set there, I want to do a file, save, and we're going to hit OK. And then we're going to do Windows Shift S. We're going to grab a window around here, drag, remember, and release. Go back to my my Word document. And then I'm just going to right click, or you can hit Control V. That'll paste it as well. I'll do that actually, Control V. Now, if again, you need to resize this to fit, on a page, that's totally fine. Okay, they don't all have to be the same size. And then this would be problem 3.2, or actually this one is problem 3.7, I think, right? Nope, 3.8. There you go. Have a look. Okay, so just kind of identify the problem for me if you wouldn't mind. Okay, and you get to do your 5 favorites here. 5 favorites. Now, we're at about 20 till, probably not enough time to do another one, but we still have, I think, one more session where we're going to be looking at questions that you have on Sketcher. So make sure that you let me know your questions, and I'll be sure to do the demos that you guys want. Okay. All right. That's what I have planned for today. Hopefully that kind of gets you off and running. And one of my plans for the next time that we meet, I will do one of the challenges. Okay. I'll probably do probably do 311. That's one of my faves. Okay, so if you look to the back there, that special S wrench, I'll make sure that I get that in on a video to come. Okay, that's all that I have. I am going to, at this moment, I'm gonna stop sharing and I will stop recording.